Part 37, the climax. I did check ahead a little bit, yeah, 5 more parts. This is the last 5 parts. It seems to be. I'll make sure, of course, but this is going to be the last video, it seems. We're getting close to 10 years in the making for this story. About a year and a half before it's 10 years old. Ain't that some shit? And I finally get to have some closure on it in my head. Red Robin and I had been on tour for about a year before he settled me into his large estate in Canterlot. It was big, but it was large enough where I could get away from him and his hectic life if I needed to be alone. For a shy mare like me, the paparazzi wasn't exactly my most favorite thing in the world, but I managed just to make Red Robin happy. He would constantly encourage me to join him to press conferences and concerts, but after a while I grew tired of trying to please him and spent most of my time in his mansion. Mostly studying for school. Being invested in my homework from the vet school he sent me to and was paying for was what I tried to focus on. Although after long tour dates, he would come home feeling exhausted and lonely, and that was where my job as groupie came in. It's a far cry from that maid outfit, let me tell ya. He never flat out told me that I was his groupie, and it wasn't like I was exactly treated like one, but I felt like it, mainly because I knew that while on his tour dates, he would have fun with other mayors. Not that I minded. I didn't have the same jealousy over him that I did with Rainbow Dash. He said I wasn't like other mayors, that I was different. I had heard it all before and simply smiled and thanked him for each compliment. It wasn't like Red Robin was a terrible living companion. He had a lot to offer a mare like me. The only things we would really fight about were the fact that I refused to kiss him on the lips. It was an experience I really shared with one pony. Intimacy. I didn't want to give that to other ponies so easily. I may have been easy with Red Robin with my body, but when it came to my heart, it wasn't as easy to win. Mostly because by this point, my heart was encased in ice. I know that's a little cruel to say, but that's how I felt. I felt that after Rainbow Dash, I could never love again. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know why. I just shut down. But it was my fault. I'm the one who ruined everything. I was sitting in my large room at my desk, reading one of my textbook chapters. I had a quiz coming up, and I wanted to be prepared. Despite how tired I was, I totally tried to invest myself in my studies. I felt like a regular old Twilight Sparkle. Oh, how I miss that girl, and the rest of them. I was jarred from my little world of school when my door violently swung open. Red Robin busted in like his own personal parade. He had a way of letting others know he was there when he entered the room. When he walked in, I instinctively cringed, while putting a smile on my face. My mind was so conflicted at this point, it tugged me in both directions. "Hey, Shy," he called, trotting over to me and pulling me into a big, sloppy kiss on the cheek. I tensed up, but allowed it to happen. I let out a tiny, fake giggle and smiled. "Oh, hello, Red Robin," I said in my small, meek voice. "What are you doing here?" I asked him as he pulled away, trotting over to my nicely made bed and plopping on it. This guy was like a less lovable version of Pinky. "I just wanted to tell you the great news," he said with a cocky grin. Red Robin stood himself up and pulled out a flyer from under his wing. On it was a picture of him, and in the background were flying ponies which looked surprisingly like the Wonderbolts. Which they were. My heart sank. "Oh, a concert with the Wonderbolts?" I asked him. He nodded and flashed a perfect grin. "Yep, isn't it just awesome? Yeah, my brother is in it now, as you know. He got him a gig with me." I raised an eyebrow, and he puffed out his chest, so full of himself, so assured that they were honored to perform with him. I almost rolled my eyes at this. Well, is that the good news then? Because I really have to. I began to sit back down at my desk when he scooped me back up as he flew a few feet in the air. I squealed as he held me tight. No. Enough studying. Enough books. I got something better for you," he said, setting me down on the bed. I tilted my head, running my hoof along my mane. "What is it?" He landed in front of me. "You have full access to the VIP booth with Princess Celestia and Princess Luna," he said eagerly. "The princesses?" My ears perked up. Oh, I didn't know they would be there. Something inside me began to sink, and I think Red Robin could see it. What's wrong? He asked. It didn't sound like he cared, more of a, oh geez, what is it this time tone. What about my friends? I asked in a hushed tone. At this point, Red Robin tried to hold back his frustration as he spoke. You mean you're nobody-nothings from that hick town? He had a smile on his face and let out a few condescending laughs. My ears lowered and I felt tears push against my eyes, trying to force their way out. They aren't nobody-nothings, I said to him, and it isn't a hick town either. I tried to sound firm, but still found myself having a hard time standing up to him. I tried to remember what Iron Will said, but it seemed no rules applied when it came to Red Robin. I won't go unless you invite them. I was firm at what I said. I forced myself to look him in the eye and put on my best serious face. He stared at me for a few minutes, scoffing and huffing and puffing. He paced back and forth a bit. I don't believe this. He looked back at me, and I narrowed my eyes even more. I was serious. He rolled his eyes and let out a sigh. Fine, fine, he said, waving his hoof. I perked up immediately and clapped my hoofs. Yay, yay. Rainbow Dash taught me that one. Well, I appreciate it, Red Robin. Now I have to get back to study. A red blur made its way towards me, and he pushed his hoof down on my chest, forcing me onto the bed. No, you don't. I let out a whimper as a coy smile spread on his face. Why'd he have to be so Celestia danged good looking? I sighed and scooted myself up on the bed, laying my head on the pillow. I didn't want my neck to be sore like last time. I looked away and shut my eyes gently as I felt him cover me with his body. As we arrived at the concert hall, Red Robin was getting ready for his show. He led me to the VIP booth, which was above every pony else, and had various snacks and drinks, and the princesses were already there. Celestia and Luna greeted both of us, as I bowed immediately. Red Robin, not so much. I trust you ladies have everything you need, he asked, seemingly rushed. It's not like these were the princesses or anything. Yes, we were just looking forward to seeing you perform, said Celestia. And I'm glad you came, Fluttershy, she said in that gentle voice, turning to me with a smile. I felt my face heat up as she said. She appreciated me being there. Oh, thank you. Yes! Luna's voice pooped out. That damn royal voice. She immediately corrected herself as she spoke, however. Yes, we were looking forward to this performance. Us especially, she giggled, walking over to Red Robin. We listen to you every day if possible. Red Robin smirked. Yeah, who doesn't? I'm just imagining them listening to Usher now, or other hip-hop, or rap. Celestia sitting there listening to Post Malone or something. My face shot up and looked right at him. The princesses seemed to brush off the comment, but that was no way to talk to a princess. I was mortified. I trotted over to my seat before feeling him walk up behind me. He planted a kiss on my cheek and flew off. I just couldn't wait for my friends to come. Celestia sat down next to me, putting a hoof on my shoulder. I looked up at her as she gave me a warm smile. Everything okay, Fluttershy? She asked, concerned. I opened my mouth to speak before she answered. Don't worry. Twilight and your friends will be here. I smiled up at her and sighed with relief. Thank goodness. I didn't want my friends to miss this. And like clockwork, Twilight, Pinkie, Rarity, and Applejack all came into the room. Girls! I was filled with an overwhelming sense of joy that I hadn't felt in ages. My girls. I flew over to them and wrapped my arms around each and every one. They all laughed and joined in. Fluttershy, we missed you, said Fluttershy, nuzzling herself into me. Me too. Ponyville just hasn't been the same without you, Applejack chimed in. We pulled away and Rarity immediately fiddled with my mane. Your mane looks wonderful, darling. I assume they are keeping it fabulous out in Counterlot, she said with a smile. I wanted to say something to Pinkie, but she was already at the snack bar, immersing herself in the punch and cakes. Oh my gosh, you girls have got to try all this stuff. I've never tasted cake this good. Well, except for the double frosting delight Miss Cake bakes for me every once in a while now. That cake is good. I smiled and laughed to myself. I was so happy to see my old friends again, even if Rainbow Dash wasn't with them. I feel like us dating really did divide us. The lights dimmed, and I could see Red Robin come up on the stage. The show was starting, and all of us shuffled to our seats, ready to see the once-in-a-lifetime event. I leaned forward and listened to the song he was singing. His voice was still really enjoyable and fun to listen to while he sang, as his backup dancers danced with him. I watched my friends enjoy the show, as I have seen them hundreds of times before. How did performers keep doing all these things over and over with such enthusiasm? I continued to zone in and out before something caught my eye. From behind Red Robin, I could see a flash of rainbow, and my heart instantly sank. "Look, every pony," cheered Twilight. "I think it's Rainbow Dash." They immediately cheered along with the crowd as the Wonderbolts performed their routine. It was as if I had anticipated this moment my entire life, that her and I would reunite this way, with her living her dream and me living mine. I continued to watch her dance around the sky, and she was smiling. She was actually smiling. I couldn't help but feel myself get more and more depressed seeing her smile and fly in the sky. But I couldn't help but smile back. She was living her dream, and I had made the right decision. My smile began to fade as she flew closer and closer to us, to our booth. The girls cheered more and more wild, but I remained motionless. At least I felt motionless as I slowly approached the balcony. I don't know if she could see me yet, but I could certainly see her. The world could see how wonderful she looked right now. Right when she was a few feet away, she stopped instantly, and despite wearing her goggles, I could see her looking right at me. I felt tears pour up out of my eyes as I opened my mouth to speak, but words didn't come out. She did the same, trying to speak, but nothing came out. Time stood still, but Rainbow Dash stopping mid-synchronized performance had its consequences as another Colt Wonderbolt slammed headfirst into her side. I let out a scream as I saw her barrel away from me. Part 38. Bam! In an instant, I felt a sharp pain stab my entire body, starting from my side and spreading out throughout the rest of me. I could hardly tell what was going on, but at this point, Fluttershy and my friends were moving away from me at an increasingly fast speed. I was being flung through the air without any control, and I looked around frantically, trying to see what was going on. Although the sudden force paralyzed me for a second, I could tell right away who it was. As soon as he realized it, Maroon Fly immediately pushed me out of his way, forcefully. "Get out of my way!" he shouted, although I couldn't really hear it. I felt my head grow dizzy as I spun even more out of control through the air, down to earth. The crowd must have noticed because although I couldn't see it, I felt their eyes fixated on me. I could just feel it, and I began to feel tears stream from my eyes and collect into my goggles. I ruined this big show, and that wasn't the only reason why I was crying either. As I felt myself fall through the air, I had seen her face again. Hers, and all my friends came as well. But out of all the ponies, why Fluttershy? Why would she want to come to my show again? I knew she always hated the idea of me being a Wonderbolt, so why even show up to this dumb show at all? My head was trying to come up with all these possibilities. All these reasons as to why she would want to come to tonight's performance. It wasn't until I felt a pair of talons grab onto me and stop me from falling that shook me from my thoughts. Blinking my tear-soaked eyes, I could barely see who was carrying me, though I already knew. "Smooth one, Dash," chuckled Gilda. Her gruff voice felt like sandpaper to my ears right now, as all I wanted to do was sleep. I fell limp in her arms and let out a sigh. "Why didn't you just let me fall?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice from choking up. I didn't hear an answer, just a low cluck come from her throat as she flew me backstage. I could hear the pounding music as the concert continued. Whoever was performing probably tried to act as though the accident never happened. Good. Whoever this was knew how to play up a crowd. I lay in Gilda's arms as she carried me over to the couch, plopping me down. I lay limp, pretending to be more hurt than I actually was, as an excuse not to move. I hesitated, but removed my goggles. They were beginning to suffocate my already drowning eyes. I pray Gilda didn't look over to see my face as I hastily wiped my tears away. I turned to see her doing some tedious task to avoid looking directly at me. Nice wipeout, kiddo. You really won the crowd over, didn't you? I didn't answer, and rolled over to my side to face the couch. I assumed Gilda waited for a response, as she let out a small chuckle. I know why you stopped. Bet that Flutter girl caught your fucking eye, didn't she? I could hear the disdain and anger in her voice, despite trying to cover it up with a laugh. When she mentioned Fluttershy, I felt my insides churn, and I curled up in a ball. Fuck. I felt the sobs try to retch out of me again as I shut my eyes tightly in an attempt to stop them. I was supposed to be over you, I thought to myself. I just wanted Gilda to leave so I could cry in peace. Don't you have somewhere to be? I assume our performance is done by now, I said, trying to hide back a few sobs. The room fell awkwardly silent as I could feel the death glare Gilda gave me. It burned between my shoulder blades, and it made me cringe. I wouldn't be too eager to get him back here, Dash, she hissed. I could hear her walk to the door, though, which made me feel better. Spitfire's gonna kill ya. I could hear the smile in her voice as she said that. I knew Spitfire would be angry, so I merely nodded, still laying on the couch. Whatever. Just leave me alone, please. There was no answer, as I heard the door slam, and that was my signal to cry. I cried like I did the first day, the day it all happened. Celestia, damn this. Why wasn't I over her yet? I thought about this day for months. Years. I thought about what would happen the day we reunite, the day we finally see each other again. I would play the first few seconds of our reunion over and over again. Our reactions, how it would go. It was exactly how I pictured it. So why do I feel so heartbroken, so torn up? Was it because she is just as beautiful as I remember, if not more so? Or maybe I'm crying for a lot of other reasons. I don't know. Despite being bashed in the side by a stallion my size, that didn't hurt as bad as seeing her face for a split second did. Part 39. Probably some pony important. 20 minutes must have gone by before I heard the familiar loud and heavy clop 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 of my fellow Wonderbolts, and I cringed slightly. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy their company, but I suspected that they were a little less than happy with my performance. Hell, I was mortified that I let myself get distracted. I kept my back to the couch, glaring at the fabric that was centimeters away from my face and touching my muzzle. I heard the doorknob open and my fellow bolts pour into the room, gabbing and congratulating each other. I felt my ears lower, and another stream of tears forced themselves through my eyes. I almost ruined the entire show. I figured I should try to congratulate them. I didn't want to show them that I was upset and hurt, forcing my legs to push myself up. I turned to face them, feigning my best smile. I waited to see how they would react to me. Hey guys, I choked in a raspy voice. I'm so sorry I totally ruined the entire thing. Soren gave me a reassuring smile, trotting over to me and patting my shoulder. Don't sweat it, he chuckled. No pony even noticed. He handed me a cup of orange soda, which I set down on the table, but probably wouldn't touch. I looked up at him and gave him a tired smile. Thanks. I looked at my worn-out reflection in the cup and sighed. Did I really look so worried all the time? I noticed we were absent one new and painfully obnoxious member. My ears perked up as I scanned the dressing room. Hey, where's Maroon? I inquired. I could see Spitfire smoothing out her hair before she heard my question, turning to face me. She shrugged. Who cares? Probably to meet up with his brother. Goodness, that kid is obnoxious. She groaned, removing her flight outfit. Why? Firestreak cooed to me. Do you have a crush on our young new member? He turned to me and winked, to assure me he was kidding. I forced a playful smile, and I saw the other members laugh. All but one. Soren looked over to notice Spitfire's put-off nature and frowned. Hey, what's wrong, Spitfire? He asked, removing his Wonderbolt's flight outfit as well. I felt a small churning in the pit of my stomach when Spitfire didn't laugh. I mean, I knew she wasn't exactly one to joke around, but this was different. I think Rainbow Dash had her eye on some pony else. I let out a small spasm, which caused me to knock over my drink, sending it spill over the side of the table as the room went quiet, before I heard a couple of ponies inquire as well. "Yeah, Rainbow Dash, who did you look at when you stopped?" asked Blaze in a casual tone, as if it held no important implications. "I saw you stop and look at some pony else before Maroonfly hit you, I think." She put her hoof to her lip, as if to remember if she actually saw it or not. I remained silent, as Spitfire seemed to answer for me. "Probably some pony important," she said, trying to sound casual. "Right, Rainbow Dash?" I tensed up and brought my legs to my chest, glaring at Spitfire. I'm sure she felt my look burn into the back of her head. Way to bring attention to me, but the other bolts were beginning to stare, so I put on another fake smile and shrugged. Just recognized my old friends back in Ponyville. I'll have to go and say hi to them before they leave." I kept my smile on my face and looked anxiously around the room, waiting to gauge every other pony's reaction. This seemed to relax them as they went back about their business. I heard Silver Lining from another part of the room chime in. "Yeah, I'd do anything to see my old friends from my old town. You should try and duck out to see 'em." When he said that, I felt adrenaline pump through my entire body as I began to shake. I didn't want to be in this room anymore. Something in what he said was making me anxious, like you want to try to catch someone before it's too late in a game of tag and someone is in front of you. Or when you're late to your class and it seems the hallway is too crowded. I couldn't hide the nervousness in my voice as I sat up from the couch. "Yeah, I'll go find him now before it's too late." I was already out of the room when I finished that sentence and on my way to see Fluttershy. It was wrong, and I should have just turned around and forgotten all about it, but I couldn't. I wore my heart on my sleeve and acted on my emotions. In this mental battle, my brain lost by a landslide as I launched myself in the air, combing my way through the lighting and steel rods of the stage to meet Fluttershy once again. Part 40. This was it. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the wind pushing against me as I darted all across the backstage, narrowly avoiding various props, lights, and other ponies in the process. I needed to find Fluttershy. I know she was still here. She has to be. I began to panic as the clock ticked on. Maybe she was going to be leaving soon. Then she'd truly be gone. I shook my head. I couldn't give up. Rainbow Dash never gives up. Not now. Not when she's so close. I was close to getting over her. Then that face. It seemed as if it was permanently emblazoned on my brain. Those cyan eyes looking at me. And that pink mane hanging slightly over one of her eyes. Those eyes. I shook my head and held back tears, trying to stay focused and determined. As I raced through the twists and turns of that backstage area, I couldn't help but think, this place is probably extremely hard to find. It isn't as if a celebrity would be in the most obvious spot. And if this guy is as famous as it's been shown tonight, he's probably hiding somewhere no pony could find him. I knew this aimless flying was getting me nowhere after I realized I was going in circles and I plopped down on a prop hanging carefully on the ceiling. Narrowing my eyes and putting my hoof to my mouth, I tried desperately to calm myself down and think, where could you be, Red Robin? And why does your name sound so familiar to me? I continued to ponder about where he could be hiding when I noticed a small, relatively young-looking unicorn trotting by himself backstage. He was pretty lanky and was reading a clipboard intently. He looked nice enough to talk to. Maybe I could ask him a few questions about where Red Robin is. I cleared my throat and took a deep breath. I had to try to tone it down and not come off as aggressive, like I always am. This was going to be tough. The unicorn looked about while saying something in his headset before I landed abruptly right in front of him. He seemed to jump, and he adjusted his mic and his headset before composing himself, looking at me like I had parasprites crawling out of my ears. The young pony tilted his head and pursed his lips. "Can I help you?" he managed to ask. I bit my bottom lip, faking a smile and trying my hardest not to burst out at him. "Can you tell me maybe where Red Robin is staying?" I knew when I said that I'd never get the answer, as the unicorn simply began to chuckle slightly. I had to come up with more things to say, and fast. Maybe the truth wouldn't hurt. "You see, My friend is staying with him, and I just need to visit her. I don't really care much for him. I just need to see the pony with him. I blinked a few times, pleading with him. I could see he didn't budge, and he looked around nervously. Look, I'm just an intern. I don't know where Red Robin is. I wasn't sure if he was telling the truth or not, so I tried to use my position of power to get what I wanted. Look, buddy, I don't know if you recognize me, but I'm a member of the Wonderbolts. In fact, I'm one of the lead ponies. Maybe you could tell me now where he is? I began to feel myself lose control and get a bit more loud, which did nothing but cause this pony to take a few steps back from me. He lowered his eyebrows and tried to look firm. Look, I'm sorry, miss, but I honestly have no idea where Red Robin is. He looked at his clipboard and picked it up with his horn magic and began to trot away from me, avoiding eye contact. I felt my stomach fall to my knees. No, I was so close. I couldn't let anything stop me now, not even this wimp. Damn. I felt an anger boil inside me as this pony walked away, like nothing. He had no idea what was at stake right now. I let out a yell and lifted myself up the ground and wrapped my arms around the unsuspecting pony's neck, tackling him viciously to the ground with the speed I had gained while chasing him. God damn, Rainbow Dash. What the fuck? He began to yell frantically before I shoved my hoof into his mouth, silencing his yells to the faintest muffled whines. It seemed his shouts were desperately trying to squeeze their way through my hoof that was not budging no matter what. You listen to me, and you listen good, I hissed, narrowing my eyes at him. I moved my face closer so he could hear me. I know Celestia damn well that you know where Red Robin is. The pony wriggled violently under my weight as I pushed down harder, holding him down so hard he could barely move. If you don't tell me right now, he began to calm down a bit, and I figured this meant he would be ready to talk. I lifted my hoof a bit. Okay, I'll tell you. Just get off, he pleaded. I narrowed my eyes again, putting on a hostile expression. You tell me where they are first, I demanded, pressing roughly against his face with my hoof. He winced in pain as I lifted my hoof off one last time. He let out a gasp before looking up at me, tears in his eyes. Up in the highest cloud, just above me. I didn't wait. As soon as he said that, I launched myself into the sky, leaving a rainbow trail behind me. Before I stopped to look at how high I was above the clouds. Though there were a few fluffy ones, it was mostly a pretty clear night, which meant if Red Robin was in a trailer supported by clouds, this one has to be fluffy. I looked around before turning to see the trailer. It wasn't too fancy, but there was probably only so many clouds he and the Pegasi ponies could use to make it big enough to support the small trailer's weight, and they had to use a smaller one instead. I'm sure a celebrity like that doesn't like it too small. I swallowed hard, floating in the sky a few minutes, watching the trailer that was only a few meters away from me. This was it. I took the deepest breath I could muster and let it out to calm myself down as I slowly flew over to the cloud holding the trailer. Just behind that door was Fluttershy. My Fluttershy. Sure, Red Robin was there, and I would deal with him later. He surely couldn't have suspected me after all. I'm a mayor. I couldn't possibly want to interfere and steal Fluttershy away. None of that was on my mind right now after seeing her face to face, even if it's the last time. Before I realized what I was doing, I felt myself raise my hoof and knock lightly on the door a few times. I felt a cold wave wash over me as I stood over waiting for the door to be answered. I was shaking violently as I heard the doorknob open, and all I could do was wait for what seemed like an eternity. I expected myself to be greeted by the yellow mare with the pink mane, but was greeted by a rather large, bulky-looking Pegasus. I could see his green eyes narrow, and a big grin spread across his face. Those eyes, that mane, even in the dark, it was easy to tell who he was up close. Well, if it isn't Rainbow Crash. Part 41, Rainbow Dash, is that you? And this is it. There's no next link. On each part, there's a previous link and a next link for each part. So, there's no next link on this one, boys. Man, man. Maybe it was the fact that it was a windy night, or maybe it was my own imagination, but it took forever to finally get to that small and inconspicuous trailer floating in the sky. Despite weighing over a ton, it floated gingerly on the cloud it was placed on, almost as if it didn't have any weight to it at all. My heart was in my chest, and my entire body felt heavy as my wings flapped powerfully against the friction of the wind blowing in all sorts of directions from way up here. I wasn't entirely too sure what I was going to do once I got to that trailer, or if she was even inside of it, but something told me I had to get up there. I had to talk to her. My brain was telling me that this was the stupidest idea I've ever had, but my heart was telling me to just keep going. Maybe I was tired of not feeling anything except numbness, and maybe I was tired of crying all the time, and not being sure why. Maybe I needed some sort of closure, but I had to see this pony at least one last time. Finally putting all four hooves on the edge of this cloud, I slowly creeped up to one of the windows and tried to peek inside. Luckily, with the full moon, it was easy to catch a tiny glimpse of what actually awaited me. Squinting my eyes to help me see better, I scanned the room with my eyes. It looked like a bedroom, a large bed with a small figure already under the blankets, it seemed, but it was impossible to tell who it actually was. I let out a frustrated groan as I tried to see if the window was unlocked, but just my luck, it was actually open. I quietly opened the latch and sat in awe for a few minutes. Then I realized they were up in the sky and the chances of a break-in were pretty slim, considering this trailer was quite well hidden. Once I opened the room, I was hit with the strong fumes of a stallion's cologne. It tickled my nose, and I could feel the sensation of sneezing tickle its way through my nostrils. I bit my bottom lip and threw my hooves over my muzzle, desperately trying to keep the sneeze in, since I knew I was a loud and violent sneezer. Once the feeling passed, I finally felt brave enough to stick my head through the window. It was a lot easier to see now that I was actually inside, but I still wanted to see that figure sleeping in the bed. Surely it wasn't that pretentious douche nozzle, Red Robin. The figure wasn't entirely too small for it to be him. I felt my stomach begin to churn. Could this be the Fluttershy I had been so desperately searching for? I swallowed hard and lifted myself up to gently place my front hooves on the floor of the trailer. The carpet was soft. It felt almost like blankets themselves. I held my breath as not to risk any pony waking up, and one by one, I inched myself all the way into the room. Once I felt all four hooves touch the ground, I finally felt relaxed enough to breathe, at least as quietly as I could. I began to inch closer and closer to the figure, and as I got closer, I finally saw who was really sleeping in front of me. I stood where I was as my ears lowered, and let out a tiny gasp. Mere inches away lay the pastel yellow pony, Fluttershy, her body rhythmically moving up and down as she breathed. Strands of her pink hair stuck out and like a river flowed through the pillows and blankets she laid on. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump in my throat begin to grow larger as I tried to swallow it away. There she was. She was really here. I honestly couldn't believe how stupid I was feeling. Despite telling myself over and over again that I had finally moved on, it was evident I hadn't, as I felt all those familiar emotions crash into me like a wave on the shore. I felt the same desire to kiss her as she slept and brushed the hair out of her eyes with my wing, to cradle her again in my arms and gently hum her to sleep. But all those emotions were mixed with something else. Anxiety, fear that I could never do such a thing again, fear that those tasks once appointed to me were given to another, more reliable pony, a stallion even. A cocktail of heartbreak and happiness had finally taken over me as I knew I had to leave before the tears began to leak out, and I would really be waking her up. I looked at her one last time before spreading my wings, ready to making my way to the window. But I was stopped suddenly by the faintest whimper. My ears perked up and I gasped, slowly turning to see the pony still facing the opposite of me. It seemed a lot more rigid now as she let out yet another whimper before I heard her speak. Rainbow Dash, is that you? And there you have it. Man, So I think what happened at the end there is that after, like, before the last part, after it was posted, I think she decided, I'll just retcon it into something that I think is a little better on for how they meet each other again. I think that's what happened there. So, man, that's it. That's it. It ends on that cliffhanger. Why does it always have to be a cliffhanger like that? I think at the first part of this little series, I explained that I think she might have done. Let me look at it actually. Let's go through it since it goes back to 2016. I think FlutterDash. Why me? Is this the story? Yes. Yes. Let me actually go back to the Jesse Eisenberg. Yes, here we go. It wasn't always like this. Yeah. Memories of how it was. But I knew how it would sort of go, so okay. Oh, okay. The memories of how it was. Okay. Well, yeah, the reboot kind of starts off in a similar way as the very first part, like the previous and no next. Wait, let me check and see. Feel the burn. Comrade, we ride it on. How do you do, fellow comrades? I don't mean to poke fun at political ideologies during a type of video like this. It's not the place for it. It's just a small joke, I guess. But that's it. Yep, that it ends with a cliffhanger, and I don't know. But oh well, there's always other stories to read. And the ones there's 3 that I particularly have on my mind. One, and they're all on FIM Fiction, which I tried logging into my old account by memory, and I logged in, so I can just go back to that account, look through my read laters, which I never got to, and finally read some of them. I think everything I remember is still there. There was one that was about Vinyl Scratch, and I think it got completed, which I'm happy because I read the first chapter and I was really kind of mesmerized by it at the time, the way it was all described and all that. There was Rainbow Dash Flies West, East, or whatever, West. This guy had the way he wrote it was very particular. Each chapter was 300 words instead of 1,000 words or whatever the norm was for a chapter on that site. And he did 2 stories that were like that. And one was, I think, about Rainbow Dash, and I think another was about an OC, an original character, Do Not Steal. That one I've been meaning to look at. And then there's the Cape Shit ones. Where it's Superman, Batman, and Hulk in Equestria, and they're each their own stories. I think I'm going to do the Batman one first, because I have a little idea for a little animation that can play associated with it, because if you look through my channel, I did a couple green text stories, and one of them I did just a little shitty MS Paint drawing of what was being described in that little tiny story. So hey, go check that out. It's a fucking weird story. I might do the Batman one for the couple little shitty animations I can make out of it. I promised myself I would learn how to draw, and I've done jacking shit. I might as well do it right now, you know. I'll get it figured out, and I'll do that at some point. And I'll play other weird little games on the meantime in this channel for other people too. And that's about an extra 10 minutes to me talking. And that's about it. And I'll see you for the next story. Bye-bye.